Oh, it's a blow for Australia, but it's good for the international game. I think that I've always said the last frontier for rugby league is the international game.
Yeah.
And having a lot of countries that can compete and make it competitive, I think that's only going to help the product.
Well, thanks for joining us here on Nine's Wide World of Sports for our round 21 edition, getting close to finals time here on Queenslander. I'm Adam Jackson, joined by Maroons legends Darren Lockyer and the King, Wally Lewis. This episode brought to you with thanks for our good sponsor, Tab. And one of the big talking points we've had in Queensland this week is that wild vision of Des Hasler in the sheds post-match after that narrow 1-point loss to the Tigers. What did you guys think of that blowing up? Has he officially lost the plot doing that?
I think it's just frustration coming out. I guess there's a lot of talk, dialogue, narrative around the Titans at the moment. And while Des might not be reading that, he would be well aware that there's plenty of talk about him and the club. And so when you're leading the game in the 75th minute, and I think they're a bit closer than what people give them credit for. When you're leading the game like that and then you end up losing it, that's just the pure frustration that is coming out in him.
Yeah, there's that magic word, frustration. It plays an enormous role in footy, particularly when the Gold Coast have been so desperate to achieve a win. I can understand sort of Des's frustrations, but I guess he's got to now question whether that works to inspire the players under his guidance, or will make them feel a little bit different. He's a guy that can be extremely quiet and not respond too much, but certainly his reactions over the last couple of weeks have indicated that he's certainly feeling the pressure, and I guess the position on the ladder and some of the performances, you can understand that.
Well, remember the infamous door kick down at Brookvale?
Yeah.
So he's got a bit of form, but again, who'd want to be a coach?
Yeah, and I guess Lockyer, you and I have had a time playing under Wayne Bennett, and the way that he and the leading coaches have responded to difficult times is certainly very different to that. But I guess it's easy to sit here and come up with answers, but certainly while not sitting in that position, and I was, when I was on the Gold Coast, I certainly did feel it and had enormous amounts of frustration going through on what to do, and wasn't getting on apparently in the papers with some of the players, and tried a number of different things. And I can remember speaking to a coach that I've got great respect for, who said to me, mate, just coach the way that you wanted to coach, because if you're trying to coach another way to inspire those players, you're not going to really understand that style that you're trying to promote to the players. And I thought that was a very good bit of info to get.
Well, he's definitely true to himself. I mean, the owners of the club are standing right beside him, so he couldn't hold it in. I guess he's hoping for a reaction.
We don't always get to see the vision, but how often would that happen? Like during your playing days, that a coach really goes off like that?
Well, it depends on the coach and the personality. Wal just mentioned Wayne was very... Wayne, whether you're sitting second on the ladder or second last, he doesn't really change.
Yeah.
He just stays calm. I remember one day, probably one of the best dressing downs that Wayne ever gave us. He came in at half-time, we're getting beaten by West
Magpies, so like 90s.
Yeah. Like I think they were beating us 20-0 at half-time. He walked in, said not one thing, and then walked out. We looked at each other and went, oh.
Yeah, we've upset the coach here. We've got to perform. And I heard that as well, Lockie. Not being there, though, you would have understood it much more. But to hear that the legend of that got around in the space of an hour, it was all around the rugby league circle. And I think you turned around and won the game from there.
I think we did. Well, from memory, we definitely we played a lot better in the second half.
Yeah. Well, this weekend, Des actually coaches his 500th NRL game. Quite a phenomenal achievement. But after that game, he reaches the milestone. Do you look at maybe moving him on there? Should he walk away or give the club a chance to start the rebuild? Because you read the tea leaves, it looks as though it's untenable at the moment?
Yeah, I think potentially there's a decision that's already been made.
Yeah.
Even if he wins every game from here on in, I don't think it's. Unfortunately for Des, I just don't think they can keep continuing down this path. So,
yeah.
And they've got, like in the next month, they've got the Warriors away, they've got Panthers, then they play the Sharks away. So the next 3 to 4 weeks, it could get very ugly, or it could be much improved.
What do you think happens there? Well, do you think he walks away, or he'll be a guy who'll try and hang out to the remainder of the season, or do the Titans make a decision, just cut the cord?
I think if there's a decision that's made that way, Des will certainly be full of determination to finish the season with some glory. Probably the club would take an opposite approach and almost move him on and try and bring in a coach. There used to be a bit of a theory that bring in a coach for the last 2 or 3 games of the season, and you give him a bit of a chance to understand the players whilst you move the other coach on. And it probably works sometimes, doesn't work a lot of other times, but it'll only be decided, I guess, in a conversation that takes place between the CEO and the coach.
It's just never an easy situation.
Oh, no.
It's just difficult. For all parties involved, whether it's the coach, the players, the club, the administration staff. So, let's just, I guess, hope for the best from here on in for the Titans.
Yeah. But the bizarre thing that stands out for me is that the last 3 games, they've only used 16 players. So for the last 3 games, they've had a player on the interchange bench. It was Loffy Pereira last week, and I think the week before, and then Jalen de Groot there. So how strange does that seem? In modern-day rugby league, you're almost at a 1-player advantage to the other team.
Well, I think his thought process there is that I've got a utility player if I need him due to an injury. But my focus will be I've got to win the middle third. I've got to win that ruck area. So he's just playing with that forward rotation. Yeah. And then I'll use this player if I need him because there's an injury. So he obviously hasn't had to use them. So I guess, that was, I know the Tigers aren't going great, but to be in front 75th minute at Lockyer, that's a pretty significant effort.
Yeah. They still should have got it done based on the way it finished. So disappointment there for the Titans, and it's hard to say. But looking at it, they'll win the wooden spoon. You don't win the wooden spoon, but you get given the wooden spoon. You look at the teams around them. Eels have shown some signs of improvement. West Tigers beat them on the weekend. For you guys looking at it, it's hard to see them avoiding the wooden spoon now.
Well, like I said, in the next month they've got Penrith at home, Warriors away, Sharks away. They then play the Warriors again. So that, out of all the clubs you look at, they've got one of the hardest runs, and look where they're sitting on the table. So I think they're short price favourites. Unfortunately, get the wooden spoon.
Yeah, I agree with you, Locky. Taking a look at that draw, you can't get much tougher than that.
Yeah.
It's going to be very difficult, and I'm sure that Des will try and inspire the players, and also the players will have a little bit of pride in their own performances and like to be able to finish the season with a bang. And we've seen some pretty good performances from the Gold Coast at difficult times throughout the season. Is this going to be one of those periods? Well, I guess only time will tell. But they're certainly going to have to change the way that they've been playing and their attitude to be able to change that.
And given his coaching record, are you massively surprised that Hasler hasn't been able to improve them in the space of 2 years?
Yeah, I guess so. I think first year, if you come in, with a different style, a different approach to the previous coach, it's always going to take a little bit of adjustment. But I think by year 2, you need to be seeing the green shoots and the improvement that you were brought in to bring. And unfortunately, for whatever reason, that just hasn't happened. So yeah, I am surprised at where they're sitting right now, given Des's coaching history.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm surprised, Adam. I'm sure you probably thought that, when I was asked about it a couple of years ago, was Des about to change the Gold Coast? I said, well, if he can't, no one will. He's got a pretty good record in tough times throughout the course of the season, and I was fairly confident, very confident actually, that he was certainly going to move them up the ladder. I didn't believe that he was going to take them into top 4 category, but certainly he was going to improve their performances week in, week out, and the standard of football that they play.
I think part of the reason for bringing Des in was trying to get to that top 4 sort of standard. You know, because I think Holbrook was doing a great job there. They were either in the 8 or just outside the 8.
Yeah.
But they wanted to take that next step, so they brought in a premiership winning coach in Des. And unfortunately, to date, it just hasn't worked.
Yeah. Well, let's look at the opposite end of the spectrum. Titans likely to get the wooden spoon. Coach of the year. If you had to nominate someone or get the vote right now, who's the coach of the year in the NRL? You look at the top of the ladder, Ricky Stewart's there with the Raiders heading towards the minor premiership. Cameron Ciraldo's done a really good job improving the Bulldogs. Andrew Webster at the Warriors. But my vote is Christian Wolf, what he's done at the Dolphins with the squad at his disposal, given he's missing 10 of his best players and also breaking the Wayne Bennett curse. So Wolfie gets my vote. Who else for you guys? Even Michael Maguire, what he's done at the Broncos.
Yeah, look, I can't disagree with you with Christian Wolf. I think it's outstanding what the Dolphins have done this year, albeit they're still not in the 8.
Yeah.
But they'll get there, I reckon. They're just the way they're playing and they get the players back. So to follow Wayne and do what he's done, they've actually gone up another level, the Dolphins. Yeah. So I can't disagree with you. If there'll be a close second, I reckon, to Ricky.
Yeah.
I think Ricky's done a great job.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head there, Locky. I mean, we can talk about their performances on the field, which have been good, but any coach that normally follows Wayne Bennett usually finds that he's not enjoying the season too much, and it's one of those efforts to be able to take on that challenge is not the one that you dream about all of your life. So certainly to be able to do that and sit so well on the ladder, I think he can certainly look at himself in the mirror at the season's end and feel quite proud about his performances.
And quite a way above Wayne Bennett and his Rabbitohs too at the moment. So that's interesting that Wolfie seems to be getting the better of Bennett in that battle at the moment. Let's move along to the Broncos. They're vying for that top 4 finish. I don't want to say relatively soft run home, but it could be a lot more difficult than what they face. So they've got 7 games left. Starts this week at Suncorp Stadium. So Eels, Rabbitohs, Storm, Dolphins, Knights, Cowboys, and then Storm again. So those 2 Storm games definitely stand out. But
well, the Dolphins won't be easy.
Yeah, well, we all know what the Dolphins did to them the back end of last year. So 7 of those games, they're currently 4 points adrift of the Warriors in 4th place. So how many of them do you think they need to win to get into the top 4?
Well, how many of the Warriors are going to lose?
Yeah, that's it.
Knights nearly did us a favour on the weekend, but not quite.
Yeah.
I think if they'll have to win, you know, we got a better for and against than the Warriors, but I think you're going to have to win at least 5 of those.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
And Adam, do we know how many were playing at home?
Good
Because I think that's going to play a major role in the outcome of the game.
The Cowboys is definitely away. One of the Storm games is at home. The Dolphins is a home game, even if it's a Dolphins game, it's at Suncorp. So I'm pretty sure 1, 2, 3, I'm pretty sure 4 of those 7 are home games. So that bodes well.
They're going to need to win those 4.
The Storm in the last round is a home game.
Yeah, but that Storm game's an away game. Yeah. So 4 of the 7,
It's a real challenge coming up. He'll be working every week, the coach and the players. That's a big one coming up for them.
Well, it's the old cliche, 1 week at a time.
Yeah.
You know, it's all their destiny's in their own hands, so they just got to keep playing well and hope they win every week, and that's enough to get them in there.
Yeah.
Well, historically, you have to finish in the top 4, but do you think this year could be a bit of an anomaly? You look what the Panthers are doing, they're likely to finish outside the top 4, and you wouldn't write them off. Do you think this could be one of those weird years where you finish outside the top 4, but you have just as good a chance?
Well, it depends on the players you've got available. So, the Broncos have got a lot of talent in their squad. If they're all there and fit, don't finish top 4, there's still a chance, I think. Panthers, the same. If they've got their best players fit and healthy at the back end and they're not in the 4, you can't write them off.
Yeah, I think the Broncos have gone pretty well. A lot better than many of the critics gave them, and certainly playing under a new coach is always a little bit of a test. But I think they've gone very well.
Could you imagine they finish 5th and the Dolphins finish 8th? And we get a round 1 Dolphins versus Broncos finals game at Suncorp Stadium? How huge would that be?
Well, you'd have people outside the stadium just watching it because they won't be able to fit them all in.
Yeah. And we'd have cranes over the roof of Suncorp Stadium trying to peer in of any high-rise towers down the road. But
Caxton's ready to be rubbing its hands.
Yeah, that would be amazing if it turns out like that. But just finally on the Broncos, Locky, what are some of the little things you want to see them fine-tune a little bit in their game right now?
I still think they're a bit impatient with the footy.
Yeah.
Defensively, they seem to be getting that in order. But they're putting a lot of pressure on their defence by forcing the pass, coming up with errors. And so if they get that right, if they get the patience part of the game right and they're not having put undue pressure on their defence, then that'll give them the players like Ezra Mann, Reece Walsh, Adam Reynolds. It'll give those guys the opportunities to just weave their magic when it presents itself.
Yeah, I agree 100%, Locky. And the game that they're playing, just to display patience, wonderful patience in that, and make sure that whenever they're carting the ball out, that they show that they're pretty pleased by getting into a good field position, kicking to the corners, and placing the pressure on the opposition to cart the ball away from their own line without making mistakes. And certainly I think Brisbane would play that under the coach. That seems to be the backbone of his plan. And if he can get that into operation early, I think they'll be looking pretty good.
And remarkably, this week will be the first time they've had their top 17 available. So you look back at the start of the year, obviously skewed by the fact that Ezra Mann was suspended for the first 10 weeks. Then Ben Hunt does his hammy, so he's not part of the team. Last time they played, Payne Huss didn't play because of his injury from Origin. So this time they've their best 17 on the field. It's remarkable it's taken round 21, but in a way it's a bonus.
Yeah, no, that's a good position to be in. You've got to be careful though. You're not thinking, well, we're all here now. Everyone just relaxes 1% because they think we've got the best team out there and you don't go and earn the win. So the Eels are going a lot better than, they nearly got the Raiders down there last week.
Yeah, they led them at half time,
So they're a much improved team, the Eels, so it's a big mental challenge for the Bronx.
Adam, do you think Payne is in 100% condition at the moment?
Not seeing him train, and especially during Origin. He only trained that one session in the lead up to Game 3 with the back injury. And you just think of the workload that he goes through.
Yeah.
You guys know it as top-level NRL players, but in the position that he plays, the amount of damage he does to his body.
Yeah, how often he's carting the ball up, doing the work, and then volunteering for work in defence as well. He needs a rest at some stage throughout the course of the game, and one of the biggest factors for a coach can be when to put the rest period out for your key players in the side, and certainly he's had a wonderful year. But they're certainly going to need every bit of him to progress any further.
I think they're just going to try and freshen him up by limiting his training.
Well, let's move along to the Kangaroos, another big discussion point at the moment. Talk that Kevy will take over as coach. Your thoughts on Kevy being in charge of the Kangaroos? What we understand at the moment, it's only for the 3 tests at the end of the year for that Ashes tour over there in England for those matches. So your thoughts, Wal or Locky and Kevy?
I think, when you're coaching at that level, I think one of the great things that all the coaches I had at the Australian, they were good at, uniting the team and playing for each other. It's not about getting in there and improving the players technically because
you can't make them any better.
They're the best in the game. So it's about bringing them together, playing for each other, playing for the jersey. And I think Kevy is well suited to that. And I think, they have to make a decision sooner rather than later so they can plan for the back end of the year. So I think just getting through the Ashes series is a priority for the commission right now. And Kevy's there. He's not an NRL coach at the moment. So I think it makes sense, for him to go in there and take a touring team, and I reckon they'll enjoy it. Yeah,
I think he'll go well too, Kev. Just one question. Would a certain number 7 of previous days be looking to be one of the trainers out there and part of the camp?
Well, I think he was taking a corporate trip anyway. So, He might not be able to fulfil his corporate duties. Well, he's always done it in the past.
Yeah, those two will be joining up at some stage. You can guarantee that.
Package deal with Alpin. Yeah, he did it quite well at Origin level, instilling that passion. Going off the back of what you said, that Locky, you don't have to be that strategic when you're coaching top level. Do you think that'll resonate with the players, because there's no one more passionate than Kev? We saw it at the Broncos and we've seen it at the Maroons.
Yeah, look, I think Kev is he's a really relatable person. He gets on well with everyone and gets on well with his players. And he'll have stories along with Elf as well, that when they played for Australia and they toured. And I remember probably some of my greatest memories are touring in the Australian team and in the UK, because it's just you and your teammates. There's no families involved. Maybe there is these days, but I think it'll just be they'll draw, or Kevy will draw on his experience as a player and touring, and try and instill that into the players that are going over this year.
Yeah, the players that are of that standard, they don't need to renew their game or come up with a different plan. They're the game's finest players, and certainly they've just got to be trained long enough, put into to be part of a team, and be able to produce their best with the company that surrounds them. So certainly there's going to be no drama for that.
Play for each other and play for your country. Play for the jerseys.
Did you ever tour with Alf into the UK?
In 97.
Yeah, okay.
That was Super League, but in 97 we still had the Laurie Daly's in the team, Brett Mullins, Steve Walters was in the team.
Brad Clyde, mate.
Yeah, Brad Clyde was in the team. So
Raiders and Broncos, pretty much the team.
We played at the old Wembley before it got torn down. But look, like I said, you train and then you play, and there's a lot of downtime where it's just you and your teammates. Right? So you get up to a bit of fun.
Yeah, and it can be the greatest matches of your life. I had the thrill, the honour of playing in a couple over there, and when you're quite aware of the people that you represent and the importance of the teammates around you, you're not willing to give anything but your level best when you go out there, and the standard of play when you're playing with the game's best can certainly improve your game and make it inspirational for those around you.
Yeah. Well, Ashes tour is 22. The last Ashes tour is 22 years ago. So but I think it's one of the great things that I'm glad it's back, because it's historical in our game. 2003 was when it was last played, and I happened to play in that series. And it's a special. I guess the Ashes is special, right? So I think there's a lot to like about what's going to happen, and the best atmospheres. If it's not Suncorp Stadium, the UK is a close second in terms of atmosphere.
Yeah. Wonderful grounds over there, and you ask anybody that's had the thrill to do it, Adam, and to go over there and play football against the club sides, and then come up with the three big ones against Great Britain. That's fantastic, and I've often said that they were the games that were the most challenging certainly through my career, and all of the other players. You talk to them about your favourite game, your favourite performance, and usually they happened on that Kangaroo tour, where you got the opportunity to take part in matches that were often decided in the last 5 or 10 minutes.
And remember, the Ashes is against Great Britain. So that's
the best. The best.
Ireland, Wales, England and Scotland, is it? Combining.
Was it 2003 the Adrian Morley send-off right at the start of the game? Robbie Kearns, what do you remember that? That was the first tackle, right?
First tackle.
First tackle of the game.
I don't want to make Adrian feel bad, but we only just won game one. If they had 12 men for 79.5 minutes.
Yeah.
If they had won that game, we only won it in the last 5 minutes.
Yeah.
If they had won that game, I reckon that was probably the first time Australia loses the Ashes series in 30 years.
Yeah.
So we came back and won. So that was a defining moment, which was in the first 10 seconds of the series.
Yeah, it was sad that it happened, yet I think every sort of question that was put to me, but did he deserve it? It was hard to say no.
Yeah.
a
It
lot
cost them the game.
Yeah, it did. It certainly did. And I remember a lot of the footy guys were saying, you know, it's that old rugby league technique. If you want to stop a man, tackle him round the legs, but he took over. If you're going to stop him, tackle him round the head. You can't run without a head. And it was sort of humorous, but in the outcome of the game, that really decided the issue. Yeah. It was all over.
You would have been in the ref's ear, Locky, saying, oh, it's a send-off. You've got to send him off, surely.
Well, I mean, we were, again, like the atmosphere, they were into us. And when that happened, like it was Robbie Kearns, and he was out before he
was gone.
Ground. It was bad. And you could just, like as the captain, I was just going, what just happened? And then you could tell it was a send-off, but at the same time, I wasn't confident he was going to send him because of the crowd.
Yeah.
Look, did you take up as a captain in situations like that? And it happened in tests that I played in, where an opposition player was sent off. I used to say, you know, we're going to have to play at our level best. Don't come up with a tackle that's anywhere near being similar to that, because the ref will send you. Yeah. He'll want to square it up. He won't be wanting to see as the guy that really spoiled any chance for the opposition. So it was a case of having to be extremely careful from that point on.
Well, I think we were always in a battle to win the game the whole time. So we were just thinking about, well, how do we win? That's all we were sort of contemplating. Yeah.
Well, as we talk about international football, eligibility for Test footy always comes up too. So there's talk that Hamiso Tabuai-Fidow, Payne Haas and Tino Fasua-Malaawi might make themselves available and defect to Samoa instead of the Kangaroos. How big a blow would that be, losing those three?
Oh, it's a blow for Australia, but it's good for the international game. I think I've always said the last frontier for rugby league is the international game.
Yeah.
And having a lot of countries that can compete and make it competitive, I think that's only going to help the product. And so seeing these players having the ability to still play Origin, but then go and play for their country of choice around their heritage, then I can only see it as a good thing for the game. Yeah. It's just, you know, if you're the coach of the Australian team, it's just a bit frustrating.
Yeah. Not so good. Yeah, I agree with you 100%, Locky. And for the standard of international football, it's fantastic. It's magnificent. It makes international football as enticing as any game that you'll ever see, and the strength of those sides that players go back to from the NRL can never be criticised. And I'd love to see them do it.
Yeah, I just think fans want a bit more clarity around that. It's difficult to ascertain. Like, my dad was asking me the other night, how come they can play State of Origin, but they
can't play Test?
Yeah, that sort of thing. And I was explaining to him with the Tier 1 and Tier 2 nations. So I think just a little bit more clarity around that.
It's a little bit confusing at the moment, but I think as the game is trying to build towards, it is trying to level the playing field in the international game.
Yeah.
I think at the moment you've got to be living in Queensland, New South Wales before you're 13.
Yeah.
I'd actually bring that down to when you start school. So you have to be in the respective states before you start school to either play Queensland or New South Wales.
Yeah.
So you've lived in one of those states for long enough to be classed as a State of Origin player.
Yeah.
But equally, you know, if you've come from Tonga or Samoa and you want to play for that country, then, you know, I think you can be both.
Yeah, and Queensland v New South Wales, Samoa and Tonga, when they play against each other, there's as much as dislike and hatred in those performances than any wonderful State of Origin game. They put their best in, and certainly they love playing those matches.
Yep. Yeah, what I don't want to see is Tongan or Samoan players that come to Australia when they're 14 or 15 and still have that ability to play Origin.
Back. Yeah.
If you open those gates up, I think it starts to dilute it. But if you've been here before you started school, then you're a Queenslander or you're a New South Wales player.
Yep, good theory there, because overall it's hard to be critical, as you mentioned. Guys like the Hammer and Tino want to pay respects to their mum or dad or grandparents' family. So hopefully get a little bit more clarity of that in the coming months. Let's move to our tab Big Call before we wrap up the show. What have we got, fellas, this week? My original tab Big Call was no coach would be sacked mid-season this year. So I think barring what happens with Des Hasler, so if the Titans can do me a solid and just hold that out to the end of the season, that was the OG of tab Big Call. So maybe that's a chance. So I'm doubling down on that. That's what I'm going to say. Yeah.
Well, mine's going to be to help out your cause. I think the Titans will get the Warriors in New Zealand.
Wow, that is a big call. Yeah.
I just think given they were close last weekend, the shower spray.
Yeah.
Shower spray might have an effect. And look, the Warriors did well to get out of trouble against the Knights.
Yeah.
But maybe this is the Titans, and it's Desi's 500th.
Yeah, and Kieran Foran's last ever game in New Zealand, because he's obviously retiring at season's end, so he'll have a lot of family and friends there. So New Zealand legend there for the Kiwis. So extra inspiration there for the Titans.
Yeah, Adam, that'd be a very good point. I remember I covered it for 9 News a few years ago when he played his first games, his first representative games. What a wonderful performance it was. But I'm going to go to Payne Haas to celebrate his comeback with a big try against the Eels on Friday night.
Nice.
He's had some wonderful performances against the Eels, who always seem to increase the importance of stopping him as quickly as they possibly can in their defensive plans. And I predict that he's going to come up with an absolute bell ringer, and it'll be his game of the season.
Well, there you go. Walls Tab Big Call is backing the big fella from the Broncos. Payne Haas to score a try against the Eels at Suncorp Stadium on Friday night. Speaking of the Warriors this week actually set up an academy in Logan with support from the local city council there, Lockyer. And it's almost invading, well, technically that's Broncos and Gold Coast territory because it's halfway between Brisbane and the Gold Coast. Is that fair game?
I think, but if you look at probably a lot of the demographic in that area, there's probably a lot of New Zealand families there.
Yeah.
So they're pretty much looking in an area and taking some of their own back.
Yeah, okay.
So look, every club is going to want to have a pathway or a nursery to, have, I guess, a farm to have these players come into their system, and there's nothing illegal about it. I think it's, from their perspective, it's smart. It just means that, the Broncos, the Gold Coast, the Dolphins just need to keep their eyes out there at what's around and what's available.
Yeah, and we've got to remember that we've targeted players. Australian clubs have targeted players from overseas, done that. So I don't see what the issue would be with a New Zealand side trying to get them back on board. I think that's fair game.
Yeah. Should they do the reverse? Say like the Broncos. Walt mentioned they've obviously targeted New Zealand players in the past, have a proud history of Kiwis at the Broncos. Should the Broncos look at setting up an academy in New Zealand? I
don't know about an academy, but I know that Simon Scanlon and his department will go to other countries and go watch carnival, school carnival. So it's not like they're not having a look. They'll have a look and, try and pick, if they're not already taken, try and pick some of the best talent, whether it's in Australia or New Zealand or even the UK. So I think every club does that. It's just the Warriors have formed an allegiance with the Logan, down there. And I think a lot of it just points to the fact that a lot of the demographic down there are Kiwis.
Yeah, well, Adam, we've done a couple of things for the news recently where we've been down in the Logan area, and there's been quite a few people of Kiwi descent. And looking at the size of these blokes, when you have a look at their age, and I remember talking to you about it, just being absolutely stunned. We're talking about 10-year-old kids, 11-year-old kids, and you swore that they would have been 14 or 15 at least. So they've certainly developed a lot earlier in life.
Yeah, I was surprised to read in the media release too. So outside of Auckland, or outside of New Zealand rather, the most condensed population of New Zealand expats is in Logan. Out of all the rest of the world. So there's a heap down there.
Well, that just exactly points
why they're doing it. Yeah. And outside that too, you look at Logan, Cameron Smith, Corey Parker, Josh Papali'i came from that area, so quite a big talent pool.
Yeah, I think if you were probably sitting in the Warriors boardroom, you'd probably say, look, in a perfect world, all of our players are New Zealanders.
Yeah.
We're not having to go to Australia to take players over. We pick the best of what's in our country, but then pick the best of our people in Australia, then we'll get a team that represents our fans.
Yeah, definitely. Big talking point, that one. But on Friday night, the focus turns to Suncorp Stadium to catch it live and free on Nine's Wide World of Sports. The Broncos, can they make it, 6 in a row, Lockyer? I think they're aiming for it. They've won 5 in a row.
1 week at a time.
Yeah, that's it. They've spoken like a true board member at the Broncos there, Locky. So Broncos Eels Friday night footy will be back next week with another ep of Queenslander, where we'll promise to talk about the Cowboys. They've been into us for not talking about the Cowboys at the moment. So Cowboys win some games and we'll start talking about them. Or next week we're going to dissect all the problems that are happening in the Cowboys because they were terrible against the Dolphins. Anyway, next week. Cowboys win this week. Please, come on, something.